Park Jisoo had always loved old things. While other salvage brokers chased after new technology and expensive cargo, she spent her days looking through forgotten corners of space stations and abandoned cargo holds. She believed that every old thing had a story to tell. She just needed to find it. She worked from Station Koryo 7, a busy trading post at the edge of human space. Her small office was filled with strange objects she had collected over 20 years. A piece of alien pottery here. An old navigation chip there. Each one was a mystery she had solved, a story she had uncovered. Today was auction day. The Galactic Reclamation Authority held these events every few months, selling off old ships and equipment that nobody wanted. Most of it was junk, broken mining machines, cargo ships too damaged to fly. Sometimes there were alien vessels, but usually they were so old that even their own species did not want them back. Jisoo sat in the back of the auction hall, drinking synthetic tea and watching the holographic displays change from one item to the next. Her neural interface, a small chip in her brain, recorded everything automatically. She could review it all later if something interesting appeared. The auctioneer was a Velthrani, an alien with too many eyes and a voice that made everything sound boring. He had been talking for 3 hours already, and Jisoo was starting to feel sleepy. Then the display changed, and Jisoo dropped her cup. The ship on the screen was huge, 3 kilometers long at least. Its hull was made of some dark metal that seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. At the back, 3 blade-like structures spread out like the tail of some great bird. Along the front, strange symbols were carved into the metal. They looked old, very, very old. Jisoo knew those symbols. She had seen them in her grandmother's old books, in drawings that had been passed down through her family for 17 generations. Her grandmother had told her stories about ships like this when she was a child. Ships from the Golden Fleet. The Golden Fleet was supposed to be a myth, a legend. The story said that thousands of years ago, when humans first left Earth, they did not have the technology to travel between stars. They should have died in the cold emptiness of space. But somehow, a fleet of 12 ships appeared. Nobody knew where they came from or who built them. These ships carried the first human colonists across impossible distances. They kept humanity alive when everything else had failed. Most people thought the story was fiction, a nice tale to tell children. But Jisoo's grandmother had believed it was true, and she had described one ship more than any other. A ship called the Cheonma, the Heavenly Demon. Jisoo stared at the holographic display, the shape of the hull, the 3 blades at the back, the strange symbols on the front. It was exactly like her grandmother had described. Lot 7749. The auctioneer said in his bored voice. Unidentified ship. Origin unknown. Found floating in the drift zone 17 years ago. Recommended action, immediate scrapping. Starting bid, 400 credits. Jisoo's heart was beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. They wanted to scrap it. They wanted to melt down the Cheonma for its metal. They had no idea what they had found. She looked around the auction hall. Nobody else seemed interested. Why would they be? The ship was old and damaged. The scrap value was probably less than the cost of moving it. To everyone else, it was just another piece of junk. 400 credits, Jisoo said. Her voice came out stronger than she expected. The auctioneer's many eyes blinked in surprise. We have 400 credits. Does anyone else wish to bid? The hall was silent. Sold to the human female in the back. Jisoo's hands were shaking as she confirmed the purchase. She had just bought a ship the size of a small city for less than the cost of a good meal. It was either the best decision of her life or the worst. She hurried out of the auction hall and found a quiet corner where she could think. The ship was currently in Reclamation Yard 12, waiting to be processed. She had maybe 3 days before they started cutting it apart. She needed help. She needed someone who would believe her. She pulled up her contact list and found a name she had not called in years, Kang Do-yun. He had been her professor at the academy, back when she was young and dreaming of becoming an archaeologist. He was old now, living alone on some quiet moon, spending his days studying ancient alien texts. Most people thought he was crazy. He had spent his whole career trying to prove that the Golden Fleet was real. Jisoo pressed the call button. It rang for a long time before a weathered face appeared on her screen. Do-hyun looked tired and annoyed. Jisoo? It is the middle of the night. What could possibly be so important that... I found the Cheonma. Do-hyun stopped talking. His mouth hung open. For a moment, Jisoo thought the connection had frozen. That is not possible, he finally said. I have the purchase documents. It is sitting in Reclamation Yard 12 right now, and they are going to scrap it in 3 days unless we do something. Another long silence. Then Do-hyun's expression changed. The tiredness disappeared. The annoyance disappeared. In their place was something Jisoo had not seen in years. Hope. I will be there in 6 hours, he said. Do not let anyone touch that ship until I arrive. The connection ended. Jisoo leaned against the wall and let out a long breath. She had no idea what she was getting into. She had no idea if she was right about the ship. But she knew one thing for certain. Her grandmother would have been proud. She made her way to the docking bay where her small shuttle waited. Reclamation Yard 12 was 4 hours away. She would get there first, make sure the ship was safe, and wait for Do-hyun to arrive. After that, she had no plan. She would figure it out as she went along. That was how she had always lived her life, finding old things, uncovering their stories. And now she had found the biggest story of all. The Cheonma was waiting for her, and somehow she felt like it had been waiting for a very long time. The reclamation yard was a graveyard. Hundreds of dead ships floated in the darkness, their hulls rusted and broken, their lights forever dark. Some were human vessels. Others belonged to alien species that Jisoo did not recognize. All of them were waiting to be cut apart and melted down. And in the middle of this graveyard, like a sleeping giant among the corpses, was the Cheonma. Jisoo guided her shuttle closer, and her breath caught in her throat. The auction footage had not done it justice. Up close, the ship was magnificent. Its dark hull seemed to flow like water frozen in time. The strange symbols along its bow glowed faintly, as if some power still lived inside. Even after thousands of years, it looked more advanced than anything humans had built since. Do-hyun sat beside her in the shuttle, his old eyes wide with wonder. He had not spoken for 10 minutes. He just stared at the ship like a man seeing the face of God. The symbols, he finally whispered. They are a language, a very old language. I have seen fragments of it in ancient texts, but never this much, never this complete. What do they say? I do not know yet, but I will find out. He turned to look at Jisoo, and there were tears in his eyes. You were right. You were actually right. The Golden Fleet was real. They docked at a small airlock on the side of the ship. The mechanism was frozen, but not broken. It took 3 hours of careful work with cutting tools and manual overrides, but finally the door opened with a groan of ancient metal. The air that rushed out was stale but breathable. Jisoo and Do-hyun stepped inside, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly lights began to turn on along the corridor. Not the harsh white lights of modern ships, but a soft amber glow that felt almost alive. The power systems are still working, Do-hyun said. His voice was shaking. That should be impossible. No power source can last this long. They walked deeper into the ship. The corridors were wide and tall, designed for something larger than humans. Or perhaps just designed to feel grand. The walls were covered with more of the strange symbols, and between them were images, pictures of stars and planets. pictures of people, pictures of a journey across the cosmos. "It is a history," Do-hyun said, running his fingers along the wall. "The ship is telling its own story." They passed through chambers filled with machines they could not understand. Some looked like engines. Others looked like weapons. Some looked like nothing Jisoo had ever seen before. Everything was silent and still, but there was a feeling in the air, a sense of waiting, as if the ship knew they were there and was deciding what to do about them. Finally, they reached the bridge. It was a circular room with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. In the center was a single chair, facing a curved window that stretched from wall to wall, and in that chair sat a figure. Jisoo stopped breathing. The figure was human. A woman with Korean features and long black hair woven with strands of silver. Her eyes were closed. Her hands rested on the arms of the chair. She looked like she was sleeping, but her skin was too perfect, too smooth. She had not aged a day in 3,000 years. "Is she dead?" Jisoo whispered. Do-hyun scanned her with his equipment, and his face went pale. "I do not know. She is not alive in any way I understand, but she is not dead either. It is like she is frozen, suspended between one moment and the next." Before Jisoo could respond, the woman's eyes opened. They were not normal eyes. They glowed like stars, bright and ancient and full of light. Jisoo stumbled backward in shock. But the woman did not move. She simply looked at them, her expression calm and curious. "You came," the woman said. Her voice was strange. The words were modern Korean, but the accent was ancient, like something from a history recording. "I knew someone would come eventually. I have been dreaming about this moment for a very long time." Jisoo found her voice. Who are you?" The woman smiled. It was a sad smile, full of memories and loss. "I am Yunhana, captain of the Cheonma, and I have been waiting for you." She rose from the chair, her movements smooth and graceful. Her uniform was made of the same dark material as the ship's hull, and on her chest was a symbol that Jisoo recognized from her grandmother's stories, the mark of a fleet captain. "The ship called to you," Hana said, looking at Jisoo with those star-bright eyes. "It recognized your blood. Your family has been connected to the Cheonma for a very long time." "My grandmother told me stories about this ship," Jisoo said. "She said it saved our people when our star was dying." She was correct. The Koryo colony was one of the first we rescued. We carried 10,000 people across 300 light years in a single night. Your ancestor was my navigator. She was very brave." Hana paused, her expression growing serious. "But we have little time for stories. Why have you come here now? Why, after all these centuries?" Jisoo remembered why she had come. The joy of discovery faded, replaced by cold fear. "The Reclamation Authority," she said. "They think this ship is just scrap metal. They are going to destroy it. In 3 days, they will start cutting it apart." For a moment, something flickered across Hana's face. Not fear, something older and fiercer. Then she smiled again, and this time there was steel in it. "Then we must give them a reason to change their minds," she said. "The Cheonma still has power, and there are things I can show them that they have never imagined." She walked to the center of the bridge and placed her hand on a console that had been dark for thousands of years. Lights flickered to life across the ship. Engines that had been silent since before recorded history began to hum with power. The Cheonma was waking up, and the galaxy was about to remember why humanity had survived. The news traveled faster than light. It spread through the communication networks like fire through dry grass. Within hours, every human in the galaxy knew. The Golden Fleet was real. One of the legendary ships had been found, and the government was planning to destroy it. People were angry, very angry. On Station Corio 7, crowds gathered outside the Reclamation Authority offices. On Earth, protesters marched through the streets of every major city. On colony worlds across the galaxy, humans who had never agreed on anything before found themselves united by a single cause. The Cheonma must be saved. Jisoo watched the chaos unfold from the bridge of the ancient ship. Captain Hana stood beside her, observing the news feeds with a mixture of wonder and sadness. "So many of them," Hana whispered. "When I went to sleep, there were only a few million humans in the entire universe. Now there are billions." "The Golden Fleet made that possible," Do-hyun said. He had barely slept since they found the ship. His eyes were red with exhaustion, but he refused to stop studying the symbols on the walls. "You saved us. You gave us the chance to become what we are." Hana shook her head. "We only opened the door. Your people walked through it on your own." Not everyone was happy about the discovery. The Velthrani Trade Consortium controlled the Reclamation Authority, and they had built their power on the assumption that humans were newcomers to the galaxy. Weak, dependent, easy to control. The Cheonma changed everything. If humans had possessed ships like this 3,000 years ago, then they were not newcomers at all. They were something much older and much more dangerous. The consortium sent their representative 2 days after the discovery. His name was Yoon Tae-sik, and he was human. That was the worst part. He had sold out his own species for money and power, and now he had come to make sure the Cheonma was destroyed. He arrived with a squad of security drones and a team of lawyers. His shuttle landed in the reclamation yard, and he marched toward the Cheonma like a man who owned the universe. Jisoo met him at the airlock, flanked by Do-hyun and a growing crowd of supporters who had traveled from across the galaxy to defend the ship. Among them was Baek Junho, a retired admiral who had commanded human fleets for 40 years. He was old now, but his eyes were sharp and his back was straight. The purchase was illegal, Tae-sik declared. His voice was amplified across the entire yard. "The lot was incorrectly categorized. The authority is reclaiming its property for immediate processing." "I have the purchase documents," Jisoo replied. "The transaction was recorded on 17 different blockchain systems. You cannot simply take it back." Tae-sik smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "I can do whatever the consortium decides is necessary for galactic stability. This ship represents an unacceptable variable. Its technology could upset existing power structures. The responsible action is controlled destruction." "The responsible action," said a voice from behind Jisoo, "is to remember why you exist at all." Captain Hana stepped forward. She looked small compared to the security drones, but there was something about her that made even the machines hesitate, something ancient and powerful. 3,000 years ago, Hana said, your ancestors were dying, their colony ships were failing, their food was running out, their hope was gone. The Velthrani Consortium's ancestors found them and offered a choice: become servants or die. She took another step forward. The Golden Fleet offered a third choice. We offered freedom. Tae-sik's smile faltered. That is just a story, a legend. It proves nothing. This ship is proof. Hana spread her arms wide, and as she did, lights began to glow across the Cheonma's hull. The symbols that Do-hyun had been studying started to shine with golden light. The Cheonma remembers everything, every journey, every rescue, every life we saved. 3,000 years of history, written in a language older than your civilization. The security drones had stopped moving. Their sensors were going crazy, detecting power levels that should have been impossible. Tae-sik looked at them, then looked at the ship, and for the first time, fear flickered across his face. You cannot stop progress, he said, but his voice had lost its confidence. You cannot turn back time. I am not trying to turn back time, Hana replied. I am trying to remind you where you came from. Your species did not survive because you were the strongest or the smartest. You survived because you refused to give up, because when everything seemed hopeless, you kept fighting. That is what the Golden Fleet saw in you. That is why we chose to help you." She turned to look at the crowd of humans who had gathered behind Jisoo. There were hundreds of them now, scientists and workers, soldiers and civilians, old and young, all of them watching her with eyes full of hope. "You have not changed," Hana said softly. 3,000 years, and you are still the same stubborn, determined, impossible species that we fell in love with, and I will not let anyone take that away from you." Admiral Junho stepped forward and stood beside Jisoo. "The Human Defense Coalition stands with the Cheonma," he announced. "Any attempt to harm this ship will be considered an act of war against humanity." Other voices joined his, leaders from colony worlds, commanders of trading fleets, scientists and historians and ordinary people who had traveled across the galaxy just to be here. They all said the same thing. The Cheonma would be protected, no matter what it cost. Tysic looked at the crowd, then looked at his useless security drones, then looked at the ancient ship glowing with power behind them. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he turned and walked back to his shuttle. "This is not over," he called over his shoulder. "The consortium does not accept defeat." "Neither do we," Jisoo called back. "That is kind of our thing." The shuttle lifted off and disappeared into the darkness between the stars. Jisoo let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. "They will be back," Junho said grimly. "And next time, they will bring more than lawyers and drones." Captain Hana nodded. Her star-bright eyes were fixed on the distant stars, as if she could see something the others could not. "Yes," she said, "they will bring warships, and then we will show them what the Golden Fleet was really built to do." 3 heavy cruisers dropped out of hyperspace, their weapons already glowing with power. They were consortium vessels, the largest and most deadly ships in the known galaxy. Each one could destroy a small moon. Together, they could reduce an entire planet to ash. They had come to destroy the Cheonma, and they had come ready for war. Inside the ancient ship, alarms that had not sounded in 3,000 years began to scream. Red lights flashed across the bridge. Displays showed the approaching cruisers, their weapons locking onto the Cheonma's position. Jisoo felt her stomach drop. "We cannot fight that. We do not even know how to fly this ship properly." Captain Hana stood at the center of the bridge, her hands resting on the main console. She did not look afraid. She looked almost peaceful. "You do not need to know how to fly the ship," she said calmly. "The Cheonma knows how to fly itself. It has been waiting for this moment, waiting to remember what it was built for." And what was it built for? Hana turned to look at Jisoo, and her star-bright eyes glowed even brighter than before. "To survive!" The lead cruiser fired. A beam of pure plasma shot across space, bright enough to blind anyone looking directly at it. It was the kind of weapon that could punch through any shield, melt any armor, destroy any ship ever built by any species in the galaxy. It hit the Cheonma's bow and simply stopped. Jisoo stared at the display in disbelief. The plasma beam was frozen in space, a flower of destructive energy suspended like a painting. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the beam reversed direction and flew back toward the cruiser that had fired it, dissipating harmlessly against its own shields. "What?" Admiral Junho whispered. He had seen 1,000 battles in his career. He had never seen anything like this. "How is that possible?" "The hulls of the Golden Fleet were forged in dying stars," Hana explained. Her voice had taken on a strange quality, like she was reciting something she had memorized long ago. "They are made of materials that do not exist in normal space. They bend the rules of physics in ways your scientists cannot yet understand. They were designed to carry humanity through a hostile universe, and they were designed by people who knew the universe would try to stop them. The second cruiser attempted to flee. Its engines flared with maximum power, trying to escape into hyperspace before the Cheonma could respond. The ancient ship moved. One moment it was hanging in the reclamation yard. The next moment it was directly in front of the fleeing cruiser, blocking its path. It had crossed 10,000 kilometers in less than a heartbeat, without any visible acceleration, without any warning. It had simply decided to be somewhere else, and then it was there. Impossible, Do-hyun breathed. That violates every law of motion we know. Your laws are suggestions, Hana said. There was a small smile on her face now. The Golden Fleet follows older rules. The third cruiser powered down its weapons. Its captain, a young Velthrani with trembling eyes, transmitted a message of surrender. He had come expecting to destroy a helpless relic. He had found something that made his warships look like toys. Jisoo watched the displays as the three cruisers retreated, their captains arguing with each other and with their commanders back home. The consortium had sent their best ships, their most powerful weapons, and they had accomplished nothing, less than nothing. They had revealed their weakness for the entire galaxy to see. They will not attack again, Junho said. There was a new light in his old eyes, pride, wonder, hope. Not after this. They know they cannot win. They will find other ways, Hana warned. They always do. Politics, economics, sabotage. The Golden Fleet could protect humanity from direct attack, but we could not protect you from yourselves. That was always your job. She walked to the great window at the front of the bridge and looked out at the stars. Her reflection in the glass looked tired, old. Despite her youthful appearance, she carried the weight of 30 centuries on her shoulders. The fleet was never meant to fight your battles forever, she continued. We were meant to give you the chance to fight them yourselves, to become strong enough that you would not need us anymore. And did we? Jisoo asked. Become strong enough? Hana turned to face her. Her expression was hard to read. Pride and sorrow mixed together in ways that made Jisoo's heart ache. You spread across the galaxy. You built civilizations on 1,000 worlds. You faced challenges that would have destroyed lesser species, and you overcame them. You fought wars and made peace. You fell and rose again. You made terrible mistakes and learned from them. She paused. Yes. You became strong enough. Stronger than we ever imagined. Then why do you look so sad? Because strength is not the same as wisdom. You have the power to shape the galaxy now. The question is whether you will use that power wisely. Hana looked back at the stars. The consortium fears you because they see what you could become. They are trying to keep you small because they know that if you ever truly unite, nothing in the universe could stand against you. The bridge was quiet. Everyone was thinking about what she had said, about what it meant for humanity, about what it meant for the future. Finally, Do-hyun spoke. Then what do we do now? The ship is safe. The consortium has retreated. What comes next? Hana smiled. It was a real smile this time, warm and hopeful. Now, she said, we teach. The Cheonma is not just a weapon. It is a library, a museum, a record of everything humanity was and everything you could become. For 3,000 years, you forgot where you came from. You forgot what made you special. It is time to remember. She placed her hand on the console, and the ship's displays changed. Instead of tactical information and weapon systems, they showed something else. Images, stories, the history of humanity's journey across the stars, told in a language that was older than civilization itself. The Golden Fleet gave you the stars, Hana said. Now it is time to show you why. The Cheonma now sat at the heart of the Human Heritage Museum, orbiting Earth's sun, at a special point where the light touched its dark hull perfectly. The ancient symbols along its bow glowed with golden fire, visible from millions of kilometers away. People called it the beacon, a reminder that humanity had come from somewhere, a promise that they were going somewhere greater. Jisoo stood on the observation deck of the museum station, watching shuttles carry visitors to and from the legendary ship. They came from everywhere, not just humans, but aliens too. Veltrani scholars who wanted to study the ancient technology, crystalline beings who rarely left their homeworld but had traveled across the galaxy just to see the proof of the legends, even representatives from species that humanity had never contacted before, drawn by rumors of a ship that could bend the laws of physics. They came to see proof that miracles were possible, that a species could be marked for death and still rise to walk among the stars. Captain Hana had spent the year sharing the secrets of the Golden Fleet, not the technology itself, which was far beyond what modern science could understand or copy, but the philosophy behind it. The understanding that survival was not about being the strongest or the smartest. It was about being the most determined, the most willing to sacrifice for people you would never meet. She had also spent time learning what had happened while she slept, the joy of discovering how far humanity had spread, the sorrow of learning that the other 11 ships of the Golden Fleet were gone, lost to time and the void. The Cheonma was the last confirmed survivor, though Hana believed others might still be out there, waiting to be found. "You are thinking about them again," Jisoo said, walking up to stand beside her. Hana nodded. Her star-bright eyes were distant, looking at something Jisoo could not see. "There were 12 of us. 12 captains who gave up our ordinary lives to become something else. We were friends, family. We knew we might never see each other again when we went our separate ways, but we always hoped. Admiral Junho is still searching. He has teams exploring the remote regions of the galaxy. If the other ships are out there, he will find them. Perhaps," Hana smiled sadly, "or perhaps they found their own endings long ago. Not every story has a happy conclusion." Below them, a group of children pressed against the observation windows, pointing at the Cheonma and chattering excitedly. One little girl was drawing the ship in a notebook, her tongue sticking out in concentration. Her picture was not accurate, but it captured something important: the wonder, the hope, the sense that tomorrow could be better than today. "She reminds me of someone," Hana said softly. "Your navigator? My ancestor?" "Myself, actually. Before all of this," Hana touched the symbol on her chest, the mark of a fleet captain. "I was 19 when they chose me. I thought it was the greatest honor in the universe. I did not understand what it would cost." "Do you regret it?" Hana was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. "I regret the years I lost, the life I might have lived, the family I might have had. I regret never seeing my mother again, never telling her that I loved her one last time." She paused. "But when I see what humanity has become, the worlds you have built, the challenges you have overcome, the people you have grown into, how could I regret that? How could any of us regret giving you the chance to become this?" The Velthrani Trade Consortium had officially recognized the Cheonma as a protected heritage site. They had no choice. The demonstration of the ship's power had reminded the entire galaxy that humanity was not a species to be controlled or contained. They were something older and stranger, and more stubborn than anyone had imagined. Director Tasik had resigned from his position and disappeared to some quiet corner of the universe. There were rumors that he was writing a book about his experiences. Jisoo did not care what he had to say. He had chosen to stand against his own people, and his own people had chosen differently. That was the only truth that mattered. Do-Yun had become famous. His theories about early human expansion were now accepted as fact, and universities across the galaxy wanted him to teach. He hated the attention but accepted it anyway. The truth was more important than his comfort. And Jisoo? She had been offered positions at universities, corporations, government agencies. She had turned them all down. Her place was here at the museum, helping to share the Cheonma's story with anyone who would listen. "What happens to you now?" she asked Hana. "Can you live again? Have a normal life?" Hana laughed. It was a bright, clear sound that seemed to make the stars shine brighter. "I do not remember how to be normal. I have been the ship for so long that I do not know where it ends and I begin." She shook her head. "But that is all right. I have a new purpose now." "What purpose?" "Making sure this story is never forgotten again." Hana's gaze swept across the stars visible through the viewport. Each point of light represented a world where humanity had taken root, had built, had thrived. The Golden Fleet gave you the chance to spread across the cosmos, but the spreading was all you. The building, the growing, the becoming, that was human determination, human creativity, human love. We just opened the door. She placed a hand on Jisoo's shoulder. And now you are ready to open doors of your own. There are other species out there, young ones, struggling ones, facing the same extinction we once did. Perhaps it is time for humanity to pay forward what the fleet gave you. Jisoo thought about that. A new purpose for her species. Not conquest, not domination, but help. Kindness. The chance for others to become what they were meant to be, just as humans had been given that chance long ago. "I think I would like that," she said. Below them, the little girl held up her drawing to show her parents. It showed the Cheonma surrounded by stars with tiny human figures waving from its hull. It was not accurate at all, but it captured something true. The joy of discovery, the wonder of survival, the promise of tomorrow. Captain Yoon Hana smiled, and for the first time in 3,000 years, the smile reached her eyes. So would I. The Cheonma glowed in the sunlight, its ancient symbols burning with golden fire. It had carried humanity across the impossible void. It had protected them when they could not protect themselves. And now, finally, it could rest. But its story was not over. It would never be over, because humanity was not done becoming. And the best chapters were yet to be written.